And Brother Graham back, giving you kind of a bonus installment on moving to Japan with school-aged children options that I know are available to American expats, not necessarily anybody else. So I can't speak for other countries, and I won't do that. But what I know of about American options, here they are. If you are an American expatriate coming to Japan with school-aged children and are concerned about Japanese public local schools, the costs associated with an international school, there is still hope because you're not alone. You're not the only people on the planet who have ever done this. From the U.S. perspective, you really kind of have three extra options. Option number one, of course, is homeschooling, something I'm actually a very big proponent of. The only real obstacle that it usually comes up when it comes to moving here with children and doing homeschooling is time, because people here are busy. God knows I am. You don't really have a whole lot of time to sit down and deliver as much quality education to your child as most people would like. But there's hope on that. The first piece of hope you can either do instead of homeschooling or in a combination with homeschooling, and that is internet schooling. The technology, man, it's making a lot of the traditional ways of doing education obsolete, and it's doing it pretty fast. There are many schools, high schools and grade schools even, back in the U.S. that have an online program for their students that a lot of people don't really realize. In fact, if you put in the name of University of and fill in the name of a state, I know several states that have an online high school or an online grade school attached to their actual university, and they're fully accredited, diploma granting. Being from Missouri myself, I know the University of Missouri has an online school, which is great. It's reasonably affordable. You're coming in at about the price of an Okinawan international school, which I was talking about a little bit earlier on my previous videos. So you're coming in at under $10,000 a year, and that's if you're going full-time at some of these schools. Some of them are much more expensive, and some of them, of course, are much less expensive. Do some searching around, especially in your area, neck of the woods, to see if a university in particular has some kind of online schooling program. And the cool thing about these is, and I verified this with the two universities that I talked to that offer online tertiary schools, you can do a combination, a side-by-side, some subjects done homeschooling and some subjects done at the international online school, and feed the homeschooling that you've done to the online school, and it counts for your credit. That comes in really handy when it comes to things like that you really just kind of can't do over the internet, like PE. PE over the internet still can't happen. Technology's not that wonderful yet. A lot of fine arts is a real pain to try to do online, things like drawing, painting, music. So if you can do those kinds of things at home and feed those credits to the internet school, then you're cutting down on costs, and you're getting your child, in my opinion, a better education because you're varying things up a bit. You're not sending them to that brick and mortar box of a school and telling them, okay, just get the points. I'm not a big fan of that approach. I think the way the factory method of doing education that we do, at least in the United States, is grossly outdated, and the words education and the word school are not the same word. You can, and very often do, have one without the other. I think this is a focus on education rather than a focus on school. And if you give it a try and you dedicate yourself to it as much as you can, I think you might be surprised, and very pleasantly surprised, at the results that can come of it. So giving that a shot would be a good idea. There are also the next section, which is if you go to an area of Japan like Kanagawa or Iwakuni or Misawa or the Nagasaki prefecture up by Sasebo, then you're probably going to be around one of the American military bases that Japan has. In which case, you have two other options. Number one is if you work on the base and you are a base-sponsored employee, here in Japan, that comes with some benefits. One of those benefits could be for qualifying employees to send your children to these schools that are on the base. This is something that not a lot of people also ever really consider. Sometimes this will cost, it depends on availability, but so far not a whole lot of places have had problems with availability. But you can feasibly get your child into a U.S. Department of Defense, Department of Education, what they're called DODEA, Department of Defense Education Activity, I think is what it stands for. And get your child in a regular brick and mortar American school. You don't even have to live on base. A lot of people don't know that. You can live out in town and your child can commute to the base with a pass that gets them into the school. Not everybody that is stationed to a base, military or civilian, sends their children to these schools. Some of them also homeschool, and they put together themselves a homeschooling network that you'll see there around these bases, especially the larger ones like the one in Yokosuka or the one in Yokota. The whole Kanagawa area, the bases are not that far from each other. So if you live in that area, the odds are pretty good that you can get involved with the homeschooling networks. And there's Facebook pages. I think I'll put up one that I know of for Yokosuka that's a fairly large one, where they share information. If you're an expert in a certain subject, maybe you can help gather them together and teach that subject as part of the homeschooling curriculum, and get a lot of support from people who are in the same situation that you're in. In fact, particularly for civilians, we can bring an outside perspective that isn't often seen around the bases, so that can actually really help. So your American options are homeschooling, internet, online schooling, a combination of those two, or the Department of Defense schools on one of the bases that we have here. If you are not from the U.S., jobs on base are going to be probably not an option. However, getting involved with homeschooling networks probably could be an option for you. I don't know what the rules and the laws and the regulations are for any kind of schooling outside the U.S. I just haven't done the legwork on that. But if you're watching this from someplace else, Canada, Australia, Great Britain, find out from your local area what homeschooling or distance education is like, because you are not the first expatriates to leave the country with school-aged children who are not sponsored to come in and do an expensive international school by a company. So there are options out there. You just have to be able to do a little bit of research to find out what they are. Take the advice that we have here, run with it, leave me some information yourself. I'll try and put some together and maybe do a new video on this subject with more things that I learned from people who have this experience. And I would absolutely love to do one on people who come to this country from a place other than the U.S. to find out what advice they can give others from this area, should it be popular enough to do. As far as I know, I'm one of the very few people in this situation that moved to Japan with a full-on family that could not go to school at their grade level due to language abilities. Once again, I just do want to reiterate, if you've watched the other two videos, you've heard me say this. Coming here at the junior high school level is the most difficult one to do, because that's where you're transitioning out of grade school, where you're really learning more about behavior than you are about subjects, and starting to learn more about subjects. The high school level can be taken care of kind of on its own as well. But that junior high school, that transition phase, that's the really difficult one. So take this advice for what it's worth and see how it might apply to you. Let me know if it does, or if this didn't help at all. If it does, I'll do more videos. If not, I'll take them down. So you won't hurt my feelings at all on that. So good luck. I hope this helped, and let me know if there's anything more I can do for you.